Now we're going to learn about connecting components to the Redux store. To connect a component to the Redux store, we use the connect function from Redux. So let's take a look at our reducer. This is what a possible reducer could look like when we create a store. We've got a user object, a movies array, a to-do list array, and a movies to watch count. Now here is a movie list component. We're going to connect this component to the Redux store using the connect function. So we've imported connect from React Redux. Instead of exporting the component on the last line, we are exporting Instead of exporting the component on the last line, you'll see here that we're actually calling or invoking the connect function, and we're invoking it twice. The first time that we invoke connect, we pass in a function and an object. Right now, since you need to pass in 2 arguments to this first invocation, we just pass in null and then an empty object. The second call, we pass in the component that we're connecting. Now let's learn about map state to props. Map state to props is the function that we pass into the connect function down at the bottom on the last line. And just like the name says, we're going to take properties from the state object, from our state tree, and map them to the props of the component that we're connecting. So map state to props is a function that tells connect which pieces of state to pass to the component. It takes in state as an argument. This is the entire state tree that we looked at the beginning. So whatever your reducer is returning as the state tree, that's what gets passed to map state to props. Then map state to props returns an object. Let's take a look at this object. The properties in this object, which we have here movies, movies to watch, and user, are what get passed to the component as props. We'll take a look at this in just a second. The values of this object come from the state object from the state tree. So the values in the returned object are properties from the state tree. Okay, let's see how all of this connects. On the left, we have our Redux tree. On the right, we have our connected component. Our connected component is using a map state to props function to map pieces of our state tree to this component's props. So the pieces that we're mapping are movies, state.movies to watch, and state.user. You'll notice that we're not adding to the to-do list, state.to-do list, in this map state to props return object. So movie list, the movie list component, will not have props.to-do list as a prop. It will just have these 3 props plus any other props that are passed down the normal way. Now let's take a look at where these props are used. Props.movies is mapped over and used to display a list of movie components. Movies to watch is displayed as just rendered as a number of movies that this user still needs to watch. And then the user is displayed as a header. Let's take a look at how to do this with a React application. So we've got our store created. we have our state tree being returned from a reducer that gets passed into create store. We've got a little bit of JSX here. We are passing store into provider, which is wrapping the app component. So let's take a look at what movie list is. So movie list is displaying the user. If we look at our data, we probably want to call user.name. Then it is displaying how many movies we have left to watch and a list of movies by dynamically rendering this movie component for each movie in the movie list. But we don't have props.movies yet, so you can see that we are getting an error because we don't have props.user, or props.movies. So let's fix that. All of these props come from the Redux store, so we don't pass them in when we render the component here. We pass them in through the connect function. So we'll import connect. This is from React Redux. Now, a quick word on the difference between the Redux library and the React Redux library. The Redux library is any piece that is only for Redux. For example, create store creates a Redux store. It has nothing to do with React or any other library. The React Redux library is anything that is a connecting piece between our Redux, the Redux part of the app, and the React app. So provider is what provides the store to our app. So this is kind of a bridge piece between React and Redux. Same with connect. This is how our React component receives the data from the Redux store. So it's a bridge piece between React and Redux. Okay, so we've imported connect. Let's go ahead and invoke connect twice down here as our export. And of course, the first time we're going to pass in null, or the first argument of the first invocation, we pass in null. This is going to be our map state to props function. And then the second argument is this object, and we'll see what goes in this object in the next video. Okay, now that we've got this connected, let's go ahead and make our map state to props function. This takes in state as an argument, and it returns an object. So we need a user on our props, movies to watch, and movies. All of the values for these properties come from state. Now we can look at our Redux store. Let's break this out over here. And let's look at our Redux store. So our Redux store, which is this state object right here, has state.movies, has the movies array, state.movies to watch, which is this property here, and state.user, which is this object here. So now we need to simply pass map state to props to connect. Then we should see all of this rendered in our app. There we go. Movie is just an H4 header of each movie that's being rendered. So those are the movies being rendered. So awesome. We connected this component with our Redux store through the map state to props function. And we can see that we are mapping our state properties to the props in our component, mapping our state to our props. Let's open this up in a tab out here and take a look at this in the React tools. So you can see that the connect function here is wrapped around our movie list. Let's go look at that in the code. The connect function is wrapped around our movie list. That's because it's showing up here as a component because this connect function is actually a higher order component. It is taking in these two things, the function and the object. It's taking in a component and it's returning a brand new component, which is basically a copy of movie list with some added functionality. What is the added functionality? The fact that we have our state coming in, state properties coming in on props. So we're extending the functionality of movie list to include these, to include it being connected to the Redux store and bringing in these pieces of our state tree as props. So let's go take a look. So there's our higher order component. And here is our movie list. And there's the props that we're receiving in. And that's how we connect a React component to the Redux store.